to thank everyone for coming tonight. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Start with the pledge of the flag by Councilman Blake.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Brenda, can you call the roll, please?
Councilman Blaisdell.
Present.
Councilwoman Kerr.
Present.
Councilman Froelich.
Present.
Councilman Isaacson.
Present.
Supervisors elect.
Present. First up is a motion to accept the minutes from the October 14th meeting as presented.
So moved.
Right, Frank made a motion there.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Councilman Blaisdell.
Yes.
Councilwoman Kerr.
Yes.
Councilman Froelich.
Yes.
Councilman Isaacson.
Yes.
Supervisors elect.
Yes. Motion to accept the minutes from the October 26th meeting as presented.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Councilman Blaisdell.
Yes.
Councilwoman Kerr.
Yes.
Councilman Froelich.
Yes.
Councilman Isaacson.
Yes.
Supervisors elect.
Yes. Under correspondence, I have a letter from residents on Citation Way, Birch Tree Lane, that you guys all have a copy of. It's a petition with an accident report and asking for a stop sign to be put up on the corner of Citation Way and Birch Tree Lane. So you guys take a look at that and we'll move on that at a later date. Motion to declare the town board as lead agency for the 91 Hutchins Road Senior Housing PED amendment.
So moved.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Councilman Blaisdell.
Yes.
Councilwoman Kerr.
Yes.
Councilman Froelich.
Yes.
Councilman Isaacson.
Yes.
Supervisors elect.
Yes, thank you. Resolution 58, 2020, a negative secret declaration for the 91 Hutchins Road Senior PDD amendment. Reaffirmation of the secret negative declaration for the amendments of a local law that establishes a planned development district known as Hutchins Road Senior Housing. Now therefore be it resolved that the town board of the town of Milton hereby determines that the following information as submitted by the applicant and considered. 1. Correspondence dated September 10th, 2020 as prepared by the applicant's legal counsel. And 2. Full environmental assessment form dated September 16th, 2020 and are adequate for completing a secret review. And be it further resolved that based on review of the application by the town's professional staff, including chief zoning officer, town attorney, and town engineer, recommendations of the planning board, and comparison with the criteria for determining significance found at 6 NYCRR section 617.7 subsection C, the town board hereby affirms the prior negative declaration and secret findings of 2018. And be it further resolved that no further secret review and compliance is required since subsequent site-specific actions will be carried out in conformance with the conditions and thresholds established for this action under the town board's original secret negative declaration and findings of 2018. And be it further resolved that the town's professional staff is hereby authorized to file any and all appropriate notices so that the intent of this resolution is carried out. Be it resolved by the town board of the town of Milton. Need a motion.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Councilman Blaisdell.
Yes.
Councilwoman Kerr.
Yes.
Councilman Froelich.
Yes.
Councilman Isaacson.
Yes.
Supervisors elect.
Yes. Okay, I will now open the public hearing on the proposed amendment to the Hudson Road Senior PDD. Just to read it now.
Notice of public hearing. Please take notice that there will be a public hearing on the proposed PDD amendment for 91 Hutchins Senior Housing PDD to be held on November 12, 2020 at 7:35 p.m. at the Town of Milton Community Center, 310 North Line Road, Boston Spa, New York, and by Zoom. All interested parties are invited to attend and be heard. It was in the paper November 1st. I'm sorry.
Mike, would you like to speak? On behalf of
The
that.
board has heard us several times, we won't occupy, the board has heard us several times, we won't occupy a lot of your time. This is a PDD that was approved, the only changes are, we're taking 19 single garages, and we're turning them into,
Put it right in your hand, Mike, if you feel more comfortable like that.
we're taking 19 single garages, turning them into two-car garages. The positioning of the buildings will not violate any of the setbacks. The coverage, lot coverage of the site is exactly as it was required to be within the original plan unit development. All that is happening is we have perceived that the seniors, there are large groups of seniors who would still like to have a two-car garage as opposed to a single-car garage. That's what we're attempting to accommodate. It also has the added benefit of putting less cars on the street, which was one of the concerns for the neighbors when we first did this. If we get through this, we still have to go through PDD site plan approval back to the planning board, which has given us a positive advisory opinion.
Thanks, Mike. Does anybody wish to speak? Going once? Well, I'll now close the public hearing.
Joe did a good job.
Great job carrying that in, Joe. We're still waiting to hear back from the county, right?
Correct.
Yep.
So we will contact the county to make sure that there's no further delay. Can we be on your next board meeting? And when would that be?
December, oh no, 25th, next, 2 weeks from yesterday.
December 25th?
No, November 25th.
Oh, I was going to say, that's why I have hearing aids. I'm going, geez, you guys are really tough.
Christmas, yeah, we're making you come in on Christmas night. But only 9 of us. If there's 10 of us, we can't get together.
Okay, okay, thank you very much.
I know we have some people waiting outside to get in, so I'm going to give these folks a minute or two to get out. We'll jump ahead to a motion to appoint Kevin Crowe of 103 Independence Court to the Fire Advisory Board for a term expiring December 31st, 2022.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Councilman Blaisdell.
Yes.
Councilwoman Thurman.
Yes.
Councilman Froelich.
Yes.
Councilman Isaacson.
Yes.
Supervisor Zalak.
Yes. Terry, do we have anyone else outside? Okay.
They decided not to wait.
My apologies, but at this time we can only have 20 people in this room, so. Next up is Mr. Privatera for the Goshen Brothers with some new information.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. This is I am John Privatera. I represent the Bogosians and their related entities. Thank you very much for Mr. Supervisor, members of the board, and council for putting us on the agenda tonight so that we could supplement our July 22 submission with some important new information. Last time we were here on July 22nd, Members of the council, particularly Councilman Froelich, asked a number of questions, particularly pointing at his observation that it appeared as though Heritage had more than recouped their investment of $1.1 million by any measure. We thought it important to gather all of the financial information and submit that to you, and also re-engage our CPA to look at those numbers and present a supplemental report to you. I emailed that to you folks on November 10. If you did not get that, I have hard copies here, if anybody here would like a hard copy of our November 10 submission. So for the record, the point of our submission is that not only have they more than recouped their investment, but they've made a tremendous amount of money, and way beyond the promise of this board to allow them, when you resolved in 2011 and 2012, to allow them a 7% investment on their return. So before I get out of my league, I'd like to ask our accountant, Alex Kuchis, to come up here and explain his report that was attached to our November 10 submission. Again, if you don't have a copy, I have more copies here if anybody wants to see it. You all set?
Thank you.
Alex.
My name is Alex Kuchis. I'm a CPA. I've been in public practice for over 34 years. I'm also a former member and chairman of the Town of Amsterdam Planning Board. I'm also a former member of the Town of Amsterdam Town Board, during which time we approved the Route 30 sewer district extension, which took the sewer line all the way up to the county line. Initially, when I was employed by Thiel, Becker & Schmani, which is the largest CPA firm in the capital region, I was tasked with putting together a report, which I issued back in January 2011. Goshen's contacted me to come before you back in July to more or less summarize the findings of that report. And in the meantime, since that July meeting, they have asked me to consider information that had been submitted by Heritage Springs Sewer Works, which is the small 1+ page letter that is part of your package. I believe it's Exhibit A. But basically what I did is I utilized my report. There were statements contained in Town Resolution number 5-2011. There was a report of Gary Robinson dated July 2020, and an October 24th, 2019 letter from Heritage to the town supervisor. Also, I used the 2019 annual report filed by Heritage. So what I did is I took the, from my original report, which looked at connection fees through the end of 2010, I'm sorry, 1989 to 2006 of $1,215,500. There was also a statement in Mr. Robinson's report that since 2010, the additional connection fee revenue of $1.2 million was recognized. You combine the two numbers and you're looking at least a return of $2.4 million in connection fees. The initial investment was $1,114,000, leaving a profit of $1.3 million. It's a total return of 116%. Now, looking at it from the perspective of the 2011 resolution, in which this board approved the 7% return, if you take the 1.1 million times the 7% times the 9 years that that 7% rate was approved for, you're looking at a little over $700,000. Compare that to the 1.3 million of profit that was actually recognized, and they've made an additional almost $600,000 on their investment. It's almost 54% above the agreed upon 7% return. That's all I have. Any questions?
Thank you.
So folks, if we, I think that's yours, okay. So folks, if we could illustrate that, we have a chart that shows that and a handout that goes with that. Do you have that, Tom?
Yes, I do.
All right. And then I want to come back and just briefly summarize part 2 of my letter of November 10th.
Thank you to the supervisor and the board for placing this on the agenda. We certainly appreciate it. It's difficult to make a presentation within a limited period of time and get all the information to you that you need. A very intelligent person sitting directly behind me said, maybe you ought to have a picture, maybe you ought to have some illustration other than the words that you just heard from our accountant, Mr. Kuchis. And as I was listening to him, I was understanding how relevant the comment was. I will take this chart and try to sum it, and you have, my brother will hand out some of you have them there. And I will answer any questions that you may have. All of the information in this chart is either from Heritage Springs directly, Saratoga County real property, or the town of Milton, and you ought to have all that information. On that chart, the first bar is the 1 million, and I'm going to abbreviate it, it's the $1,114,819 that the town authorized and certified that Heritage and or its principals had made such an investment back in, well, I should say over several years. The initial investment is comprised of 3 components. The first would be in about 1988 of $700,000, an investment that was made for their Deer Run project that didn't exist but was for 210 townhouses and now presently exists, was for an investment of $700,000. The second part of their investment of the $1,114,000 is the $300,000 that the principals spent in extending the line to what we now know is Kate Ross Estates. It was raw land. They developed it into building lots, and it required a sewer extension. And the third component of that, the $114,000, was for the Winter Circle project, of which they were a party to. So the $1,114,000 is comprised of 3 components, all of which were for real estate deals involving principals of Heritage Springs. The second bar that you see here is the $1,000,001, and added to it, the town authorized 7% in 2011. And the 7% authorization in the 2011 resolution was never retroactive or annualized. So if you take that 7% of $1,000,001, it's about $78,000 and change. For 9 years, it totals a little over $702,000. You add those numbers together, and I'm going to have to look at my chart, and you come up with $1,817,000. So you got $1.8 million. The $1,000,001 had $700,000 in interest authorized by 2011. You come to $1,008,000. The third bar that you see there shows, according to Heritage fiscal year 2019 report that they submitted to the town in May 14th of this year, said in their report that they had collected up to and including 2019 $1,796,313. Now you must add an additional $450,000, and where does that $450,000 come from? That comes from money that they gave away in a discounted rate to Winter Circle. In Winter Circle contract, it requires $1,500 per ERU, but in their submittals to the town, they have admitted and said that they were only charging $750. Well, because they gave away $450,000, you can't discount that. So the third bar shows the $1.8 million in connection fees that they've collected and added to the $450,000 of imputed income. That's this chart, right? This is right here. That totals $2,246,000. That's over double their investment. The third bar totals $5.3 million. And what is that comprised of? It is comprised of $2.2 million in connection fees and discounted rates they gave themselves, $950,000 that they sold the Deer Run project for. Remember, they invested the $700,000. And the last upper part was $2.1 million in real estate that they sold in Kate Ross Estate for this second $300,000 investment that they made. So, it's very easy to see. They put $1 million in the ground for real estate deals. They have collected $5,292,313 in real estate deals and connection charges. In connection charges and discounted money that they gave away, they doubled the money. If you add in the income, and they have admitted that the investments were made by the principal, they have admitted that they were expensed as part of real estate deals. So if you're going to include what the principals invested, and that's all they did, $1 million, then you need to include their income from the real estate deals. And it's easy to see that they've gotten 5 times what the initial investment was. Again, thank you, and thank you for the idea.
And just to return to the point that you were considering in July, what is a fair connection fee for Heritage to charge people in this community to tie into their sewer? It's based a little bit on your 2011 resolution to allow them a 7% return on their investment. That has yielded, by any math, far beyond the 7% that you committed to in 2011, such that there is no basis for any further connection fee. Nobody else in this county pays a $2,000 connection fee to a private entity that's at all to get to the Saratoga County Sewer District. Is it really our intent to allow, with respect to the senior housing project that you just approved a PDD for, that each one of those senior homes has to pay $2,000 to tie into a sewer? Why should they pay that? Why should they make more than, make all of that, when they've already made a return on their investment? So on this record, there's no basis for any further connection charge, to burden this community with any further connection charge, to burden the developments that you're approving with any connection charge that is other than zero. Nothing in the record to support anything other than zero. And not fair to the developers or the potential homeowners, including those in the senior housing project that you just considered. The second point of my November 10 letter was to explain to you that it's fair and expected that you would pass a resolution to consent to the Saratoga County Sewer District taking over this private company. When Rockefeller pushed this legislation forward that allowed for transportation corporations, it was because private developers were ahead of the municipalities, particularly in Clifton Park. And that, Jim, is why Saratoga County is referenced separately in the Transportation Corporation Law, and why the towns in this county have the right to consent to it going to the county, because the expectation always was, and the reason Rockefeller did it, or led the charge through the legislature, was because the municipalities couldn't keep up, let the TCLs be formed, get the pipes in the ground, let the buildings be built, let the tax base grow, and then give it to the county. Exhibit B to my letter is a series of correspondence that goes back to 1988 that documents the expectation of the county sewer district and the expectation of Heritage Springs that it would be taken over by the county sewer district. Starting in 87, then 89, then in 96 they got 6 more years. And what's interesting, if you look at Exhibit B, in 2003, Heritage said, oh, can't we just make a little bit more money? Give us 6 more years. The Saratoga County Sewer District, and this is the last document in Exhibit B, the sewer district wrote the town board and said, do you really think this makes sense to give them 6 more years? The expectation was that this would become publicly owned, and we can take it over for $0, because we're just going to allow them to recoup some of their investment. That was their expectation. Well, I can't find anywhere a response to the Saratoga County Sewer District to that question in 2003. I think it's time. They've made their money, and this community shouldn't have to pay any more. You have a legal right, and I would suggest even an obligation, fiduciary duty, to consent to the county taking this over. They expect it. We know it's in good shape. As a matter of fact, Heritage is required to keep it in shape, ready to be turned over as a matter of law. So it's ready to be turned over. It's ready to save this community the connection fees. And it's ready to save this community the user fees. Because Saratoga County's already let this board know that the people that are now paying, what is it, $240 each? It would go down to about $50 a piece, like everybody else in the county. So I would respectfully suggest that on this record, you consider the value that you could bring to this community by passing a resolution determining that the connection fees going forward, particularly for the new projects that you just approved and the ones forthcoming, of $0. Pass a resolution consenting to the Saratoga County Sewer District taking it over. And then it's up to them under the law to pay for it, although the law says that they should pay the depreciated rate. It's exactly what Rockefeller wanted to happen. The private companies come in, they spend the money on getting the pipes in the ground, they depreciate it for a while. When the project is built out at the depreciated rate, the county pays at the depreciated rate to take it over. But then the law now says a depreciated rate that can't go for more than 30 years. So I would suggest that the county's going to be able to get this for $0. But that's up to them. All you have to do is consent. And finally say that it's in the public interest and this community's interest for public ownership of this utility. That was the intent of the law from the beginning. This is the longest. I can't find another TCL that has endured this long, except a couple that are in homeowner associations, not in the public sphere. The longest one in the state I can find. And I talked to the comptroller's office about that. So please, we ask tonight that you finally consider the appropriateness of a $0 connection charge and county ownership of this important utility. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next up, Resolution 59 of 2020, authorizing the issuance of a $1 million bond for rehabilitation of Town Hall. Resolution authorizing rehabilitation of the Milton Town Hall, authorizing the issuance of up to $1 million in serial bonds of the Town of Milton pay the cost of town hall rehabilitation and authorizing the issuance of up to $1 million in bond anticipation notes for the same purpose. Now therefore be it resolved that the town board of Milton, Saratoga County as follows. There are 22 sections that I'm not going to read for everybody. Be it further resolved that the town clerk is hereby directed to prepare, post, and publish the appropriate notices for public hearing in accordance with town law. So we need a motion to approve resolution 59.
Yes.
Okay.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Yes. I have a question. So the resolution says up to $1 million. So we just spoke at the last meeting about the potential of $100,000 in solar funds. At what point can we consider possibly dropping that number from $1 million to, say, $900,000? If the board agreed to it.
Well, the up to, Brian, would be really when the final numbers are done with the project. So you could, at that point, make any adjustments to what you want to borrow. So depending on how long this project runs, then you can make your adjustments.
Okay.
Brian seconded.
I second.
That was the discussion.
Okay.
Or I don't know if there's any more.
We good? Councilman Blaisdell.
Yes.
Councilwoman Hurd.
No, I'm going to vote no on this resolution. I think everybody knows, I've had plenty of discussion on it, that I think there's a better direction for it. I don't think this is a good time to be putting the town into $1 million debt. I think there are other solutions to this, and with that, I vote no. Thank you.
Councilman Froelich.
Yes.
Councilman Isaacson.
Yes.
Supervisor Zalati.
Yes. Okay, next up is a continuation of the public hearing on the budget. If you have something to say, raise your hand. I'll give you your 3 minutes. Before we get started though, I have a little note here from our controller. It says, I would like to point out there are 3 errors when preparing the budget. They will be adjusted prior to the preparation of the adopted version. A1350-1, Controller Personnel Services is overestimated by $497. DB 5130-1, Machinery Personal Services is underestimated by $14,302. And the date on the clerk certification page has not been updated, so those will all be changed before we finalize the budget. Anyone? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. We are going to take a week and go over this again, or still, and so I'm going to schedule a special meeting for next Friday morning at 8 p.m. to adopt the budget for the year 2021. 8 a.m., sorry.
All right, so we need a motion.
Okay, I need a motion to set a special meeting for next Friday morning at 8 a.m. to adopt the budget.
What's that date?
That will be the 20th. You'll have to post that somewhere, right? Okay.
So moved.
So Frank, make the motion.
Okay.
Need a second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Ryan.
Any discussion? Councilman Blaisdell.
Yes.
Councilwoman Kerr.
Yes.
Councilman Frolich.
Yes.
Councilman Isakson.
Yes.
Supervisor Zalat.
Yes. We will now have public comment. If anybody has anything to say, please raise your hand, either here or on Zoom. And I'll try my best to get to you on Zoom. Sir?
Good evening, Mike McNamara, here tonight.
Right into the mic, Mike.
It's on, right?
Yeah, you may have to hold it right up,
Oh, okay.
whatever makes you comfortable.
Here tonight representing Heritage. I hope it goes without saying that Heritage absolutely categorically disagrees with everything presented tonight. We will be putting together a full response to point out the many flaws in both Mr. Privatera and Mr. Kuchis' arguments. What I would like to do right now, though, is read a statement into the record, and then I'll give copies to the clerk to give to the board. Dear Supervisors Lotnick and Town Board members, earlier this week we were informed of a request by Bogosian attorney John Privatera to be included as an agenda item at your Town Board meeting tonight. Pursuant to our subsequent FOIL, we have received Mr. Privatera's 3-page cover letter dated November 10th, November 4th letter from Alexander Kuchis, and materials included as Exhibit B related to past Saratoga County Sewer District approvals of Heritage. Upon our review of this submittal, we find nothing new that would undermine the vast record already established by the 2010 and 2020 Robinson and Claflin reports, Town Resolutions 5/2011 and 4/2012, and Heritage's previous rebuttals during this rate review. We believe, and we will provide supporting information, that the materials submitted by Mr. Privatera in Exhibit B are an intentionally incomplete record meant to mislead Town Board. He has repeatedly refused to acknowledge the final county resolution in 2004 that granted perpetual consent for Heritage's operation until Heritage agrees to relinquish. We will cite other examples where both Mr. Privatera and his legal associates have repeated the same pattern to omit information or to obscure or change the wording of the sewer district resolutions in order to falsely suggest that Heritage had previously agreed or was obligated to turn over its system. The frequency and variation of his actions on this matter eliminate any margin to excuse his representations as innocent error. Mr. Kuchis' 1-page letter, purported as a financial report, is riddled with factual errors showing that he has either been denied the full record by his clients or he has chosen not to complete a comprehensive analysis. His final conclusions as to Heritage's realized return on investment ignore basic fundamentals of accounting in the time value of money. His assertion that Resolution 5/2011 makes no mention of applying the interest rate retroactively or of compounding the interest rate annually repeats an arbitrary and capricious theme initially suggested by former Town Supervisor Dan Luza. His statement conveniently must ignore no less than 3 paragraphs within Resolution 5/2011 with mathematical statements that can only be valid based on an annual interest rate extending back to the initial date of each separate investment. Mr. Kuchis also ignores, for his client's financial benefit, the so-called Claflin chart, which Heritage has included in Appendix 2 of each annual report since 2013.
Mike, I'm sorry, but I have to stop you. That's your 3 minutes.
Okay,
You can finish.
I'm reading what I'm going to turn in, so you'll each have a copy, and we will be doing something more comprehensive in the future.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Anyone else? Anna?
Hi.
Hi.
I just would like to just to remind you a little bit about the budget. After the last meeting, Wendy Libertor misquoted me by saying that I was vying for a raise for Dave Forbes. That was not what I was doing. I was simply giving you an analogy based on some of the board members' quotes about why the new comptroller, after being here for 4 months, deserves a 7.4% raise. In that analogy, what I said was, the town of Milton has 88 miles of road, and Dave Forbes makes $70,000. Now, they do this with 12 employees. The town of Malta has 75 miles of roads. He makes 77 grand, and they have 15 employees, full-time employees. The town of Ballston has 55 miles around the road, and that highway superintendent makes $90,000, and they also have 12 employees. So when you're cutting the highway budget, I would just like to say that our town continually does more with less. We have less employees than some of the other towns, we do more. I've worked at the county for 33 years, and we have people coming from Corinth, Hadley, Day, and every single time they say, we know we're okay once we get into the town of Milton, because those roads are clear. If you're gonna cut something, think about the highways. You want to be safe when you go to work, I wanna be safe. All the rest of the county employees and everybody else that comes into this municipality. We are the icon for road. Maybe you all don't know that, but everybody thinks the town of Milton roads are the best in Saratoga County. That's all I have, thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Tom?
Thank you, and I will
Before
not
we begin, Tom, I'd like to say something if you don't mind. I won't eat to your time.
Okay, thank you.
Everyone in this town gets to speak.
Yep,
Everyone in this town gets their 3 minutes.
yes.
Doesn't matter if you're a ditch digger or one of the biggest developers we have. I treat everyone the same way. So please respect that. And when I tell you that your 3 minutes are up, please end your speech.
Got it. Thank you very much. Again, I appreciate being placed on the agenda. It made our presentation go smoother, and I will not exceed my 180 seconds. The reason we brought the chart is because it illustrates so plainly what's so offensive to the public and the residents of the town. To have the sewer company representative come back up here, they put $1 million expended for real estate deals that they did, and they've collected over $2 million in connection fees and $3 million in real property sales. It's offensive to hear, as a resident of your town, how they're entitled to more money and they haven't been paid back, and they can stay here in perpetuity, and they're going to be able to collect, gouge, and take money from the public forever and ever. Their chart that they gave you for fiscal year 2019 shows that they have yet to receive an additional $1 million. It's obvious, it's offensive. We ask that you act on it immediately. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Bruce?
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I was trying to get through this evening without coming to this podium, but when is enough enough? I think we clearly demonstrated via the chart that we produced, which was based upon factual information and based upon Heritage Springs' own record. The bottom line is, citizens in this town pay the highest rates for sewer of any town, any county. That's not fair to the folks that live here. That's not fair to the people that are going to be buying the new senior housing on Hutchins Road. It doesn't have to be like that. There is no reason the town of Milton has to be hamstrung with the highest sewer rates in the county. And I think that's what Mr. Privatera was saying tonight. It's in the public interest, and it's the fiduciary duty of this board to make sure that if there is an option that is less expensive for the residents of your town, it's our responsibility to give them that option. You're going to embark on a project for the town hall, and you're going to renovate the town hall, and you're going to put it out to bid. I'm going to guess you're not going to hire the highest bid. You're going to go to the lowest bid. Well, the citizens of the town deserve that same treatment when it comes to the sewer rates. They need to be able to pay the lowest reasonable, qualified company or district, or whatever you want to call it, to provide for that sewer service. No different than what we're looking at the town hall. This is really time to be done with this. And if anybody thinks that it was the intention of this board in 2011 to grant the sewer company an annuity of 7% a year that would never, ever possibly be paid, I don't think that's what this board intended. I truly don't. So when Mr. McNamara states, you know, it's retroactive back to 1988, I don't think that's what you guys intended. If it is, you need to let the public know that. And I don't think that was your intention. We need to have fair rates. The public needs to have fair rates. And you guys have the authority and the power to make that happen. That's all we're asking. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? We've got a couple people with their hands up, so I'm going to, Ms. Judah.
Hi, thank you. This is Michelle Judah, 34 Mantasset Lane. I just want to thank the board first off for obviously a lot of work that was done on the budget to be responsive to the concerns that were brought forth by the public over a short period of time. Also want to thank the supervisor for the little bit of summary that was added to the amended preliminary budget that helps give a little bit of background. I do just want to suggest, though, that to be the most transparent ever in terms of the budget process, it really would be helpful. I remember coming to previous budget meetings where there was actually a presentation made to the public, which really brought them through line by line what's in the budget. It would have been helpful tonight to have a summary of what had changed line by line given to the public so that we don't have to be going through it ourselves and trying to make sense of it. So I remember pretty contentious conversations in the past about each of these contractual lines and what's in them. So I just have a hard time saying that it's the most transparent ever. But obviously there was some work done. 2 points that I want to make. I do notice on the controller line that where salary has gone down, the contractual line has gone up. We may need those funds to get our fiscal house in order. I understand that, but I would like some more transparency about what's going on with it. And I do notice that, you know, a note has been added that these are estimates based on unaudited 2019 financial statements. And I would really appreciate an answer at some point made public as to where we are with getting 2019 audited and knowing for sure that we're okay in terms of what our accounting shows that for. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Herbst.
Thank you, Supervisor. Good evening, everyone. First I would like to thank Judah that just told us. I appreciate your comments in the last meeting, and I 100% agree with you again at this meeting. I agree that I appreciate the work that was done on the budget, that the town looks like they're putting effort into fix the issues, but I do agree with her that, you know, I've been saying for several months now that a comprehensive presentation by the board of everything in the budget would be extremely helpful to all the taxpayers in the town. I've gleaned more from Ms. Judah's, 3-minute comments than I have from anything that the town has presented. It's very difficult to go through that line by line and try to figure that out on our own, and it would be helpful for the board at some point to present every aspect of the budget to the taxpayers. I think the reason that needs to be done is because there needs to be fairness. I've been saying this is word for month. There needs to be fairness in salaries. You can't just give new employees and elected officials salary increases. However you're doing those salary increases, it needs to be fair. Same thing with tax increases. If you're doing tax increases, it needs to be explained to people and it needs to be fair. It can't be because you want to give certain individuals a salary increase. And then I think the biggest thing that I have issue with as far as fairness goes is the sewer. We elected all of you assuming that you had our best interest mind. I want to thank the gentleman that spoke on behalf of the sewer issue. It was an excellent explanation of an extremely complicated issue that I've been looking into for months. After all this time, if the town does not act on the consensus to release the system to the county sewer department, the county residents of this town are left to assume that the town board is complicit in allowing Heritage to fraudulently police the town residents of Milton. It is imperative that you take this on. It is not just the promotions that are getting up here every week and talking about this. My neighbors are talking about this. We're all talking about this. This is an issue the town needs to take care of. It's been going on for years and it's unacceptable. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, we'll end the public comment and entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Any discussion? Councilman Blaisdell.
Yes.
Councilwoman Kerr.
Yes.
Councilman Crowley.
Yes.
Councilman Zaki.
Yes.
Supervisor Salakia.
Yes. Thank you.